Hi, I'm Marty Levinson. Welcome to the Northtown Neighborhood News Magazine.
Hi, I'm Marty Levinson. Welcome to the Northtown News Magazine show with the greatest cameraman around, Sonny Hirsch, and your host, Avi Myers.
Thank you, Marty. Avi Myers, Northtown Neighborhood News Magazine. Presentation of Sonny Hirsch and myself. Dial us up on the web at www.ntnm.org. Jewish Chicago will be coming out late February for the election for your early voting pleasure. We will be printing more copies than ever, and we're expecting circulation to hit somewhere about 55 to 60,000 minimum. And you know what? One of the cool things is that, you know, like I've got people who are going to be passing them out all over the place and actually door to door. So that's the nice thing about knowing politicians. Of course, you know, we try to give you good coverage, and that's what makes a lot of you guys want to read it. Not to mention the fact that we're going to have, you know, everything up on the website. And one of these days, I did buy a website, and one of these days, I might actually like give you the new improved version of what we've got already. So hopefully that'll all happen before the election. YouTube, we're there. Judicial elections, of course, you can get more coverage on judicial races here than anywhere. But one of the things you can get here that you can't get in an awful lot of places is the expertise of Chicago's leading election lawyer, Jim Nally. Jim, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Avi, and thanks for having me.
First of all, thank you, and it's always a pleasure to have you here. And you know, we're filming just so people have an exact frame of reference. This will be on like 2 weeks from. This will be on in 15 days, so December 29th. So people can, you know, in between holidays. In any event, the filing dates, you know what, why don't you tell us what in terms of objections, all objections have to be filed by now?
Yes, all nomination papers have been filed, so anybody who was seeking to run for office had to have their paperwork in by December 5th, and then by December the 12th, all withdrawals and objections to candidacies had to be filed. So everybody who's in, and all objections that are going to be filed are on record right now. The process of hearing the objections has not yet begun as we sit here today, though.
It was interesting because I was looking through the objection list, and I think a lot of just regular people, as opposed to the insiders, filed more objections than ever, it would seem.
Yeah, I think this will be a pretty busy season. Probably not as busy as, well, the Chicago Municipal is always the busiest with the various aldermanic candidates, and that is over. And this cycle is kind of interesting, Avi, because there are no statewide offices up for election this election cycle. And even in Cook County, there are countywide offices, but for state's attorney in the Democratic primary, Anita Alvarez, our current state's attorney, is running unopposed.
Who did the best Marty Levinson in the history of Marty Levinsons, and by the way, who will be a guest in about a month on the show.
Well, and obviously she's done a very good job as state's attorney because nobody even bothered to file against her to contest it. So she will be unopposed on the Democratic ballot, and I'm sure will be overwhelmingly reelected in November. And Karen Yarborough, who's filed in the Democratic Party for Recorder of Deeds, the current recorder is retiring. She is also running unopposed.
Jean Moore. Now I noticed she's from Maywood. Is she connected with Moore, or?
No, she's from the same area out there, but Karen's been in state government out there for a number of years, and her husband is the mayor of Maywood.
Ah. Okay, and we'll have to get her on the show before
the
primary.
Yeah, and she's very articulate and very well qualified. There is a contest countywide for clerk of the circuit court. Dorothy Brown, the incumbent, the longtime incumbent, is running again, obviously. And she is facing a challenge from Rick Munoz.
As a matter of fact, just to tell you my quick Facebook story for today, I started posting about when the next shoot was going to be. So Dorothy Brown's person, Enza Ranieri, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Enza, says, hey, we want to get Dorothy Brown on. So, you know, like I announced on Facebook, you know, yeah, another person coming to the next shoot, you know, Abden Pielish, Dorothy Brown. Who sees it? Kit Duffy, who happens to be, you know, a Rick Munoz person, and says, hey, can we get Rick Munoz on the show? So, you know, listen, I'm an equal opportunity interviewer. So absolutely, and this all happened today in the space of about 45 minutes because everybody's busy watching me, thank you. And by the way, feel free to fiend me or friend me on Facebook, you know, Avi Myers. And You can also follow me in the Twitterverse because I'm actually twitting right now.
You are a busy man.
Well, by the way, you can hit the same button and hit it and twit on both. You can twit and Facebook. You can hit one button or two buttons, and the same comment goes on both.
Well, that is efficient.
Very efficient, and some people prefer to be twits than faces. So anyway, yeah, that'll be Dorothy Brown has a battle.
Yeah,
But
and
she doesn't-
there's an objection pending to the Munoz petitions. I haven't seen it, so I don't know the nature of it, but there was one filed. But all our state representatives and state senators are up because, you know, this is a redistricting year. The census was conducted in 2010, so this is the first census, first election after the census, and by law, the districts have to be drawn every 10 years to conform to the population shifts. So there will be, every state representative and senator is running this cycle for re-election, or people who want to run in new districts are running. So there's a fair amount of activity going on for state legislative seats.
No question. You know, I really wish, even though last night I actually, you know, sometimes I really have to do my homework for the show. Some things I know offhand. But the fact is that the list of objections and the list of candidates, the final list, only came out Monday, and this is Wednesday. So, you know, there's too many names to memorize that quickly. I noticed that Jeff Schoenberg, who's leaving in Evanston and Skokie, Daniel Biss is the, you know, who's Northside political boss Jan Schakowsky's person, but he's got an opponent.
There are a number of people, you generally find in the redistricting years that more people run. And the reason being is the districts are changed. Nobody is running in the same district, even if it's an incumbent who's been a legislator for 20 years. The district changes because the population shifts, and they have to even out the populations among all the districts in the state. So nobody has the advantage of running in a district that is totally the same as they've been running in for the last 10 years. And with new population shifts and new boundaries, many people think that's the best opportunity to run, because you're going to have voters who are not familiar with an incumbent, who will say, you know, I don't know anything more about this candidate than that candidate. So it tends to be a time, more so than any other election year in an election cycle, when people run for legislative seats who are not incumbents, or who are not, you know, necessarily the slated or endorsed candidates.
Now, you're right. Biss actually was state representative before, and with the open Senate seat, he ran for Senate. I will also say he has done one of the best jobs of ducking the show of just about anybody. And I called him on his cell phone last election to try to get him on the show. And I have no axe to grind with him one way or another. I don't really know the guy. I wanted to get the guy on the air. And as most people know, with the exception of maybe ethical violators like Abby Fishman-Romanek, I don't have that much of an axe to grind. But in any event, I get him on the phone, and he says, call my campaign office, you know, and set up an appointment, you know, and he gave me the number. I did. Of course, I got a machine. He was probably sitting next to it at the time, and he never called me back. He's used other dodging techniques also.
I've had the privilege of being a guest on your program for many, many years now. And the one thing I always praised you is that you will have people on who don't necessarily disagree with you, or you do agree with them, but you are really, as you said, an equal opportunity interviewer. And that, you know, I've always admired the fact that you want to bring people of different viewpoints on here and let them talk and you know, put out in the public what their positions are on the various issues. So I think anybody who doesn't want to come on the show is doing themselves a disservice, really, because they're losing an opportunity, you know, to get out there and appear on a program that a lot of people watch. There are many, many people, particularly people who are really politically tuned in, who watch your show religiously, whether it's here or on the YouTube or whatever, because they know you have a great diversity of guests and, you know, a great diversity of opinions. And it's not a show where only certain people are invited and other people aren't.
Yeah, thank you. And matter of fact, I can't begin to tell you, like a guy named Tom Stapka, who I have met a couple times. You know, he's friends with Ed Maloney, who's going to appear in a show in the near future, who's running for judge. And he friended me. And, well, with Tom Stapke and I were already friends on Facebook. Not that necessarily that means I know half the people who are my friends, but we communicate. And, you know, I listed my phone number there. He gave me a call. He wanted to arrange the interview. And, you know, Maloney's got 22 years experience. He's a good guy. I was happy to put him on the show.
Well, and I'm glad you talked about judicial, because people are going to be amazed at this ballot with the number of judicial races. This, in my experience, this is the largest number of judicial elections that I have ever seen in one election. There will be 6 appellate seats.
Yeah, I just heard that, the 6th got added, and I guess Matt Delort was...
Matt Delort, who is a longtime election attorney, a colleague and a friend of mine, a very, very bright, hardworking guy.
And a very good guy, I agree.
Yeah, and who's been a circuit court judge now for several years. Yeah. The Democratic Party has chosen him to be the slated candidate for one of the vacancies. So Matt will be on the ballot, and he's an excellent candidate. He's been an excellent judge, and will certainly be an excellent appellate judge when he wins that election. But
no, I agree. And by the way, just for the record, and Jim is not included in this comment, people. But you know what? When he was, before he became a judge, and he was Ira Silverstein's main advisor, Ira was a better public official. And Matt's really a terrific guy, and it's one of the things that shows him. And I don't ask you to have any part of that. That was just me. Go ahead.
Well, and so Matt is he'll be a great judge. So he's one of the slated candidates for the appellate court. But again, there's 6 vacancies there, so there's a ton of people running in those races. There are 11 Cook County circuit-wide circuit judge positions, which is an awful lot. And those judges will be running...
Oh, one thing I just want to mention real quick, too, about the appellate. I've never had more people, and probably because of the number of candidates, come to me to be on the air running for appellate court. And I've actually had shoots where I think 3 or 4 of the guests in that shoot were running for appellate court.
Yeah, I mean, there's some fine
there's
candidates.
a wealth on YouTube for you guys to watch.
Marguerite Quinn, who I represent, full disclosure, has been a circuit judge and is also running. Has a very good record, great bar.
By the way, feel free to invite her to come on the show.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, and again, Avi, what I like here is these judicial races are so important, not just for lawyers. You know, the public official that you are more likely to have any interaction with as a citizen during your lifetime will be a judge, because think about it. You may have a traffic ticket. You may be injured in a car accident, and you have to file a suit to recover damages for that. You know, you may have an eviction situation, either as a tenant or as a landlord. You know, most people at some point in their life are going to be stepping up in front of a judge. And that's why it's so important to know who these people are when they're running, and pick good, solid people who are going to do a good job in that capacity, because it's in your own self-interest. You will, in some point, encounter the judicial system, and you would want to hope that the person who's there is qualified to do that job.
And that is so important. And you know what? You know, I'm glad to say that most of the people I've interviewed so far really seem to me to be quality individuals.
Yeah, and as I said, though, this election, you will be amazed when you go into the voting booth and see the number. 6 appellate, 11 countywide, and then in the various sub-circuits. As you know, since 1992, we've had 15 sub-circuits in Cook County, where judges run out of a smaller geographic area for the position. And in this election cycle, between the 15 sub-circuits, I'm going to say there are probably close to 35 vacancies.
Wow.
That people are going to be running in. Now, everybody will not be voting for 35 judges in the sub-circuits, because they are geographically defined and are smaller districts. But the odds are pretty good that no matter where you live, there will be at least one, if not more, contested judicial sub-circuit races.
Which sub-circuit do you live in these days?
I'm in the 9th.
Oh, cool.
Michael Bender is running in that race. Michael's a very highly qualified individual.
And by the way, Mike's going to be on the show next week.
Yes. His dad was a wonderful Cook County judge before him.
Dad was an outstanding individual. And by the way, Michael's following in the footsteps. When Michael was a trustee in Skokie, and he served a number of purposes there, I mean, the things people don't hear about, the lengths he went to make sure that people got buried properly, you know, when they were indigent. I mean, these are things that, you know, that guy's not going to vote for him. The guy has no family. I mean, he really cares about people.
Yeah. And again, these are people who live right in your community who are running in the sub-circuits because in order to run, you have to be a resident of that area. And these are much smaller districts. It's not the entirety of Cook County. It's 1/15 of Cook County. So these are people that you probably have a high likelihood you'll bump into at the grocery store or at a park or at some social function. And these are people, again, who are going to be sitting in judgment of you and your fellow citizens. So I think it's very important this election because there are so many spots open. This will in many ways have a tremendous effect on the judiciary for years to come because so many people are going to be selected in this election to be judges and are going to then serve for many years in that position.
No, there's no question about it. And I know there's 2 races in our 9th Circuit, and in the 8th, which is just a little bit south and a little bit east of us, I don't know if there's 5 races, I think there are.
There are four races in that. And the 8th sub-circuit runs, as you said, Avi, a little bit east of West Ridge, kind of East Rogers Park, and then it kind of runs all the way south down the lakefront. Portions of it go down almost by Comiskey Park.
So we're talking basically like, around Devon Avenue to Comiskey Park?
Yeah, it's a
little south of Devon.
It's pretty much the whole North Lakefront. If you live on the North Lakefront, at least say east of Ashland Avenue or Clark Street, the odds are good that you're probably in that district. That's an interesting district too because probably, I won't say probably, undoubtedly, per capita, there are more lawyers living in that district than any other one in the state, maybe the country. So when spots open up in the 8th Judicial Sub-Circuit, there's normally numerous candidates running.
I assume our friend Judge Fleming is still sitting in the 8th.
Yeah, Judge Jack Fleming was originally elected from the 8th
guy.
Sub-Circuit, and he's been serving for many years. He was in the criminal courts for many years, and he's actually serving in the probate court now. Yeah. And he was elected from that district. But there are 4 openings, and there are a ton of people running.
Yeah. Matter of fact, it's going to be a lot to sort through. We've already had a number. I think we've already had about 5 or 6 of them on the air. And, of course, there's open invitations to anybody qualified. And, a number of these people friended me on Facebook faster than you could.
Well, I think, Avi, this is an interesting election because there aren't a lot of other offices being contested on the ballot. This would be a real opportunity for people to take the time to learn more about the judicial candidates because there isn't going to be the noise of a governor's race or a Senate race or something like that that's going to be kind of crowding it out. It is a presidential year, but at least on the Democratic side, President Obama will be running unopposed, so it's not like there's going to be a lot of coverage of that. So this is a race where people can really look at their local candidates, state legislative candidates as well as judges, and hopefully take the time to know about them and be better informed voters when they go in because the judicial races traditionally do not garner a lot of press coverage. They are not really high priority. Judges ethically cannot go out and take positions on matters of public policy. They're prohibited because some of these issues will come before them as a judge and they can't prejudge the case. So they're not allowed to talk about, as a political leader might, their position on taxes or on abortion or same-sex marriage or social issues or economic issues such as that. They basically can say, look, I will follow the law and I'll honor the Constitution and I'll do my very best to make the right rulings under the law. So they don't draw a lot of attention because by their nature they're not controversial, and controversy is what usually the media is interested in.
A recent story, Tom Seraphin, Fox TV commentator, owns one of the best PR firms going, always takes the tough candidates and tough people.
Well, Tom is an absolute pro, and I would tell you that if you were looking for somebody to help you with media relations and things, he'd be the first guy I'd call.
I would agree with that 100%. Anyway, he throws actually what is my favorite party of the year, the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. He basically rents out all of Butch McGuire's and open bar. I mean, I can't eat the food. It's not kosher. But, there's pizza and appetizers and hors d'oeuvres and all that stuff. I mean, it's the place is wall to wall. It's basically every just about anybody you'd ever want to meet in the press, and all these politicians and political people and all the rest of it. So anyway, that's where I initially met, although not, in previous years, Abden Pialish, who is my favorite political reporter. So I saw him almost right away, and he was basically the first person I was really talking to. And there were about 3 people involved in various judicial races that came over to us and says, you two guys are the only people who cover the judiciary. Sorry about that. Long day, folks. But yeah, as a matter of fact, for those of you, if you want to read about how slating works, he's got an article. It was November 5th in the Sun-Times about how the slating process works. And it's a real gem. It's very knowledgeable stuff.
Well, Abden is really good because, he started out actually as a reporter with the Chicago Daily Law Bulletin. And he's
I didn't know that.
Yes. So, he covered legal issues for many years for that newspaper, and then when he shifted over to the Sun-Times, he kept that interest, and you're right, he's one of the few mainstream reporters who give coverage to judicial candidacies and legal issues, and he does so very well and very fairly, I think.
Yeah, very fairly, and as a matter of fact, I don't remember the exact quote from you, but you were talking about how interesting, fair, I mean, we both think very highly of him. Let's put it that way.
He's very good, and he covers this area which because of the nature of it is not really that interesting to the major media because again it's not controversial, it's not something where there's all sorts of activity going on that they can capture on camera and turn into a good story. But again, I don't know what's more important than the judicial branch in terms of this is the branch that can decide your liberty, whether you spend time in jail or whether you spend time in free society. And certainly, if you have any sort of a dispute, it's where we as a society go to resolve our disputes.
Yeah, in a civil, decent manner. And it's so important and the funny thing is too, when I was reading the slating story, there was one woman whose pitch is that even though she's this minority or that minority, she's got an Irish name. So, she's going to get the vote from everywhere.
Well, and unfortunately,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Unfortunately, in the past, judicial races have come down to everything but the qualification of the candidates in some cases because there's not a lot of light tossed onto them, in the media. People don't pay attention. In fact, the fall off from people who come in to vote, who take a ballot, and they'll vote for the high-profile, races like governor or senator, or even state's attorney or county board, whatever's up that time. The fall-off, though, from the number of ballots that are taken to the number of people who vote through the judicial ballot is almost 40%. So think about that.
That's amazing.
60% of the people who come in actually vote in the judicial races, but 40% of the people who take the time to vote, whether they do it early voting or absentee or they come to their polling place on election day, they make that effort to go out and vote, and then when they get to the judges, they say, I'm not going to bother. And some people, I think it's because they don't know. I've talked to people and say, look, I don't really know anything about the people running for judge, so I choose not to vote for any of them because I don't want to vote for somebody who may turn out to be unqualified. And my response is, well, why don't you take the time to learn? There's a lot of places, including this program that you're watching right now, where you can see the people, live in color, talking about their background, their qualifications, and every major bar association does ratings of the judges in terms of their background and their qualifications and their experience. It's all on their websites. It's put in the newspapers. So, it kind of bothers me when people say, well, I don't vote the judicial ballot because I don't know who these people are. Take the time to find out who they are and take the time to make sure you vote and vote for qualified people.
Absolutely. And by the way, also Jewish Chicago, which will be coming out late February, we not only are going to have I'm going to go really a lot more extensive on the judicial this time than I ever have. And it's not just a question of me, it's the Bar Association meetings, but more so, I've actually got a panel of legal experts. And sometimes, I've always, in the past, I try to go by them after I made a mistake or two early on. And sometimes I'm shocked by their recommendations. But you know what? But they know the law better than I do, and they understand, how things work better than I do to a certain extent. And But
Well,
I shouldn't say shocked too often. There was one race last time where I thought sure somebody was going to get endorsed and he didn't, and it was like, wow.
This would be an opportunity because there aren't that many high-profile races, that crowd out the judicial races normally. This would be a great opportunity for people to be able to learn more about the judicial candidates before they go in and vote.
No, absolutely. And one thing I'll point out, even though it's going to be, sometime in about a week and a half before the election, but Jim Nally is my co-host for, we'll do an hour live show from the CAN TV studios on a Sunday morning and go over the whole election. And that also is definitely must-see TV, forget NBC.
Yeah, which is great. And just to round out the ballot, for party office this cycle, ward committeemen in Chicago are both Republican and Democrat.
Yeah, and as met in the 50th Ward, Ken Hollander actually resigned, and Tom Morris, who's a very interesting character, is the only person running for the Republican slot.
The interesting thing about ward committeemen, there are some contested races, but the vast majority are not being contested.
Oh, like in 49, as a matter of fact.
I believe there are 3 people running in the 49th
Yeah,
ward.
are you representing any of them?
I'm not involved in representing any of them.
Yeah, but David Fagus is the incumbent. Jim Gindursky, I don't know how to pronounce that right. Is he the guy you represented, or?
No, I've never represented anybody over there.
Oh, he was one of the other alderman candidates 4 years ago then. But,
Yes.
and I got all his, I got all his PR stuff. I know he's running, and I don't know who the third person is.
Yeah,
But-
that's the exception though. Ward committeeman races tend to be, most of the time, the incumbent alderman is the ward committeeman on the Democratic side,
Yeah.
and or at least some other elected official in the ward. And the Republicans, unfortunately for them, don't really draw a lot of candidates because there aren't that many Republican voters in the city.
No, basically, and Kenny, we wish you well, and Kenny, I owe you a phone call. Sorry about that, but basically, he was telling me as a Republican committeeman, basically it was money out of his pocket and time he spent, and he basically figured after 25 years, it's time to call it a day and let somebody else have a shot at it.
Well, ward committeeman is kind of a thankless job. I mean, there was a time a generation ago when that was probably more powerful than being an elected official in a lot of ways. But obviously, where patronage and things of that nature have gone by the wayside, it is an unpaid position. It's a party official. You're not a public official.
Yeah.
And their function now mainly is just to endorse and slate candidates of the political party. And then they do have legal rights if, for instance, an opening takes place where an elected representative in the area dies or resigns or something. The committeemen have legal rights to fill that in an interim basis till the next election.
By the way, we're starting to run out of time. First of all, by the way, if any of you guys want to give me a free pass to your political fundraisers, not that I'm looking, I can't even eat the food, guys. It's not kosher. But you know what? I'm really trying to meet and greet as much as possible. And hey, your shot, closing minute.
Closing minute. Well, I do want to say that I enjoy the election show that we'll be doing in March, but I always enjoy doing the December show with you because the snow's starting to fly and we're coming to the end of the calendar year. And what better time to give you, as I always do, my official major promotional item, a pocket calendar for the year 2012.
And by the way, first of all, thank you so much. And just to show people, this is actually what I use to book the TV show. And I don't know how much the camera can see, but this thing is written over like crazy. And without being sacrilegious, I call this the Book of Nally. And if people want to be on the show, they need to be inscribed in the Book of Nally. No sacrilegion meant at all. But you know what? I love this thing. And that is my entire guide to the TV show. And during the show, all the rest of it, I've always got it within arm's reach except on the Sabbath.
Well, so it shall be written.
That was excellent. Excellent. At this point, we're not even going to have much time for Marty Levinson's. I want to thank my entire technical crew, Sonny Hirsch. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Jim Nally, for gracing us. You're welcome here early and often, just as many people in Chicago would like to vote, but don't. Hopefully not as much as they used to. And we want to thank all of you for joining us. Everybody, take care. Be well. Bye-bye.